I've got a bunch of metrics here, and I'm going to pull the measure values into the rows and the measure names into the columns. But a problem I frequently encounter is if I try to use the measure values or the measure names in a calculated field or a parameter, they don't appear. So a workaround for that is I'll go back to the data source, and I'll select all the metrics that I have, and then right-click and hit Pivot. Now we can use the pivot field names as the measure names and the pivot field values as the measure values. So going back to the sheet, I'm going to replace our measure values with our pivot field values. And I'll replace the measure names with our pivot field names. So now we've created exactly the same chart, but we can now use the names and values in calculated fields or parameters. One use case for this is if you want to have a legend that groups the metrics and assigns it colors based on those groupings. So I can type out a condition like if the pivot field names contain sales or revenue, then assign it a value of blue. So in this statement, what our pivot field names are basically our measure names. But this also works for pivot field values. So I'm just going to go through and assign some more conditions to all of these. Then I can pull that legend calculated field into the marks and change it to a color. Then I'll edit the colors and assign the values to be the correct colors. If you have calculated fields that you created after the fact and you want to pivot those as well, I would suggest using a cleaning software like Tableau Prep to do that beforehand, as this only works for fields that are directly from the data source or native fields.